Something is blocking the light inside 3I ATLS, and it's not supposed to be there. The leaked image looks wrong from the first second. Geometric emptiness where nature should make clouds. A stable shadow inside what should be a turbulent coma. That isn't noise, and it isn't a bad frame. It's structure. Something holding its shape through every exposure, like someone built a shape, buried it in frozen volatiles, and sent it drifting across the void. And then Avi Loeb drops the statistic. The probability that this object encountered Jupiter's gravity well by natural chance is 0.00005%. If you think that sounds engineered, planned, almost staged, you're not alone. Stay with me. I'll walk you through the evidence, the orbital mechanics, the shadow geometry, even the institutional silence that started right after the first anomaly was flagged. By the end of this, you'll understand why some researchers whisper the word parking and what that means for us. If this mystery hits you the way it hit me, hit like, subscribe, whatever. You're going to want to be here when this story unfolds. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, what time it is out there in your corner of the world, and whether you truly believe we're being told everything about what's happening out in the dark. All right, let's begin. I'm sitting alone in the control room at the University of Arizona's Catalina Sky Survey facility. Screens flickering that cold, bluish light that always makes me feel like I'm standing inside a refrigerator. It's 3:47 a.m., which I've learned is the exact hour where rational thought begins losing its footing. Everything feels close. My breath, the hum of the servers, the low static from the radio receiver pulling telemetry from the Subaru telescope in Hawaii. And then the raw might frame hits my monitor. At first, I think someone's screwing with the pipeline, a prank, a corrupted FITS file. But the metadata checks out. Exposure time, correct. Filter wheel, correct. Star field alignment, perfect. And there, right at the center, framed by a faint halo of diffused scattering, something that looks like a shadow carved into the coma of an interstellar comet. Comets do not have internal shadows. Their comae are chaotic vapor envelopes of dust and gas, turbulent, shifting, always smearing into noise. But this is a rigid void. A cutout, a shape that refuses to diffuse. I blink 3 times before I even touch the keyboard. Then the automated mass estimate appears at the bottom of the screen, and the air seems to get sucked out of the room. Gravitational mass? Too heavy, by nearly a factor of 3. Density? Inconsistent with all known comet models. Outgassing behavior? Anomalous. And that shape, the shape inside the coma, is not responding to solar heating the way volatiles are supposed to. I call Ethan, one of our postdocs, praying he's awake. He answers on the 3rd ring, voice raspy, annoyed. I tell him to open the encrypted stream from our observatory. 30 seconds later, he isn't annoyed anymore. "Jesus," he whispers. "What is that?" I don't answer, because I'm afraid saying the words out loud will make them real. Instead, I send the dataset to our colleagues at Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, then to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. Within 10 minutes, 3 separate observatories confirm the same impossible truth. 3I ATLS is too heavy for what we see. It's like weighing a bicycle and getting the mass of a pickup truck. Within 20 minutes, someone from JPL emails, "Check for artifacts." Within 30, run the comparison frames. Within 40, we see it too, not an error. And at 54 minutes past the hour, a message arrives that chills me more than the shadow in the coma. Stop transmitting raw data to public servers. Lock until review. That never happens. Not for comets, not for asteroids, not even for potentially hazardous objects. The only time raw feed is restricted is when something doesn't match existing models, something that could cause panic or misunderstanding, or geopolitical exploitation, or all three? I lean back in my chair, shoulders tight, pulse loud in my ears. Outside, Tucson is dark and quiet, the desert stretching out towards the mountains in tones of deep blue and ash. Inside, every screen in front of me is screaming the same message with numbers instead of words. Something is wrong. At 4:26 a.m., the Subaru team sends over a stacked image, a composite of 14 exposures aligned to reduce noise. That's when the shape becomes impossible to ignore. It's not spherical, not diffuse, not organic, it's angular. A slanted edge, a curvature that arcs too cleanly, a discontinuity that bisects the coma like a blade. And yet nothing is physically visible in normal light. Only the absence of scattering reveals it, a shadow without an object, a void with mass. My throat goes dry. I replay the frame over and over, watching the coma swirl, flicker, distort, except for that one shape, that one silhouette inside the envelope, refusing to move, refusing to behave like vapor. It's as if the comet is draped over something buried inside it, a casing, a shell, a vessel. I tell myself I'm tired. I'm hallucinating patterns, pareidolia, the brain finding structure in chaos. But then Ethan appears in the doorway, pale, trembling slightly. He says the mass curve steepened. It's stabilizing at a higher value than before. Higher, I ask. How much higher? He swallows. 5.8 million metric tons. That number hits me like a physical force. Too heavy. Far too heavy. A half-mile nucleus of ice and dust should max out around 1 to 2 million tons. 5.8 means dense materials, iron, nickel, or something even heavier. But the spectroscopic readings show zero metal enrichment. None. Not even trace iron emission lines, which every comet shows near perihelion. That means the interior mass isn't interacting with the coma at all, which means it's not part of the comet, which means something is sitting inside 3I ATLS, adding gravitational mass while remaining completely hidden. I try to steady my breath, but it comes out shaky anyway. There's a moment, just one, where I catch my reflection in the glass of the monitor. My eyes look wrong, too wide, like I'm staring at a predator emerging from the trees. At 5:03 a.m., an encrypted call from JPL flashes onto the second screen. It's Dr. Karen Willis, head of orbital anomaly analysis. Her voice is low, controlled, but the tremor underneath it is unmistakable. We ran the retrograde simulation. If you trace 3I ATLS's hyperbolic path backwards, she stops, breathes. It didn't just pass Jupiter's orbit. It matched velocity with Jupiter for almost 11 hours. My fingers go numb. Matched velocity? Comets don't match orbits with anything. They fall. They accelerate. They obey gravity. They don't slow down beside a planet like they're waiting for something. Karen continues. Look, we're not publishing this. Not yet. The last thing we need is public speculation about agency or intent. But the statistical probability of a natural object performing that maneuver is 0.00005%. You saw Avi's note. Everyone saw Avi's note, and no one wants to be the one who says it first. She doesn't have to say it. The implication hangs in the air between us, heavy, electric, terrifying. What if the velocity match wasn't an accident? What if something inside 3I ATLS was using Jupiter's gravity well the way a spacecraft would? A burn? A slingshot? A parking maneuver? I hear myself laugh, but the sound is sharp, brittle. We're not equipped for this. We're not even close. Karen exhales. No, we're not. The call ends. For a long moment, I just sit there, listening to the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. A storm is building outside, low thunder rolling across the desert like distant artillery. I try to anchor myself in something rational. Numbers, data, error margins. But every time I try to dismiss the implications, my mind circles back to the shadow inside the coma. That perfect geometry, that unnatural stability, and the mass. God, the mass. At 6:12 a.m., power flickers. Not enough to shut the system down, but enough to make every monitor stutter. Ethan curses under his breath. The network's overloaded. Too many institutions pulling the feed. He's right. I check the server log. 83 active remote requests. Then 90. Then 96. Somewhere in Washington, someone at NASA HQ has just authorized full spectrum review. That means they're scared. Truly scared. Around 6:30, the eastern horizon starts to glow faint orange. Sunrise. I feel like I've been awake for a week. My shoulders ache. My palms are sweaty. My throat tastes metallic. I open the newest stack from Hubble. Deep UV passband, 210 nanometers. The coma flares bright white, volatiles boiling off as Atlas approaches its perihelion window. And there, inside the bright wash of vapor, the shadow sharpens. Edges that shouldn't exist. Symmetry that has no business emerging from natural outgassing. I zoom in until the pixels blur into digital dust. And still the shape holds. Hard lines. A curve. A seam? My stomach twists. I feel suddenly painfully aware how small Earth is, how fragile, how unprepared. Ethan breaks the silence first. If that thing has structure, he whispers, then someone built it. I shake my head instantly, reflexively, violently. Don't say that. Why not? Because if we admit that possibility, I say, barely hearing my own voice, we have to admit something else. What? I stare at the shadow until my eyes sting. That we can't stop it. He doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. The truth sits between us like a third presence in the room. Cold, heavy, undeniable. Whatever is inside 3I Atlas, whatever is adding that impossible mass, whatever is holding that impossible shape, we have no tools to reach it, no probes fast enough to intercept it, no weapons that could survive long enough to matter, no models that can even tell us what we're dealing with. We are blind, outmatched, unready. And for the first time in my scientific career, I feel it. Not curiosity, not excitement, not even fear. Something worse. Helplessness. Because Atlas isn't just passing through. It slowed down near Jupiter. It adjusted its approach. And now, as the Hubble feed refreshes, the coma dims for just one frame. One single frame revealing a darker silhouette beneath the shadow. A second shape, smaller, closer to the nucleus, like a door or a hatch. My breath stops. The cursor shakes beneath my hand. And just like that, the question shifts from what is it to something infinitely more dangerous. What does it want? But I don't say that. Not yet. Not out loud. Not while the sun is still rising over the desert, painting my window in gold and blood. Because part of me still hopes this is all just a misunderstanding, a glitch, a misinterpretation. But the deeper part, the part that has spent a lifetime studying the universe, knows better. Something is inside 3I Atlas. And whatever it is, we are not ready for it. Not scientifically, not politically, not psychologically. And God help us, there may not be enough time to change that.
The first thing I notice when part 2 begins is the silence. the kind that crawls into a room before anyone says what they're really thinking. It's 8:14 a.m. now, and the Lunar and Planetary Lab in Tucson feels too small for what we're about to discuss. Half the scientists look like they ran here straight from their cars, jackets half-zipped, hair still wet from rushed showers. The other half look like they never left the building last night. I'm somewhere in between, physically present, mentally still staring at that impossible shadow, suspended inside 3i ATLS like a tumor made of geometry. A senior analyst from JPL, Dr. Raymond Holt, appears on the projection screen. He looks older than he did yesterday. His voice is steady, but only because people like him have practiced sounding steady while delivering bad news. "We've analyzed the velocity match with Jupiter," he says, and the room goes still, like everyone's collectively holding a breath. The maneuver is real, the timing is unnatural, and the object's trajectory after the encounter indicates an intentional correction, not a perturbation. A low murmur rises from one corner of the room. Someone starts to ask a question, but Holt pushes forward. "We are not using the word intentional in the colloquial sense," he says, choosing each syllable like a surgeon choosing where to cut. "We mean the maneuver fits the mathematical profile of a controlled trajectory." My heart hammers against my ribs. I don't move. No one does. Controlled. That one word turns everyone in the room into primates staring at the dark mouth of a cave they're suddenly no longer sure is empty. He shifts to the next slide, showing a time-stamped animation of Atlas near Jupiter. It isn't smooth or cinematic, just raw gravitational modeling plotted across a star field, but it hits harder than any Hollywood interpretation ever could. At 0417 UTC, Atlas's path begins to curve, not the broad gravitational arc of a natural inbound body, but a tightened spiral, like a hand gently gripping the reins. At 0748 UTC, it stabilizes, matches Jupiter's orbital speed, holds, for exactly 10 hours, 51 minutes, and 12 seconds. Too precise, too clean, too deliberate. Then a shift, a release, a departure vector that doesn't align with simple slingshot dynamics. It angles in a way that suggests awareness of mass, drag, solar radiation pressure. Awareness. That word sticks to the roof of my mouth like poison. Holt says, "We ran thousands of simulations. None produced this outcome naturally." My stomach knots. Then he clicks to the next slide, and for a moment, I nearly forget how to breathe. It's the shape, the internal void. Only this time, instead of a static exposure, he shows a sequence. The coma flickering, turbulent, boiling outward, but the shadow staying fixed, perfectly stable, while everything around it shifts like a storm. "This is unprecedented," Holt says. "Even under extreme sublimation models, internal structures do not remain coherent at this scale." He pauses, then delivers the line that will haunt me later. "If it's not natural structure, then it is engineered structure." A shock wave rolls through the room. Chairs creak. Someone inhales sharply. Someone else mutters, "No, no, absolutely not." I don't say anything, but my body reacts before my mind does. My fingers tighten around the edge of the table until they go numb. He shifts again. "Let me be clear, this does not confirm artificial origin, but we must treat it as a hypothesis with non-zero probability." Non-zero. It's a small word. It should feel safe. It doesn't. Then comes the second blow. Mass estimates continue to rise. We are now approaching 6.1 million metric tons. A few researchers exchange uneasy glances. Someone scribbles something frantically into their notebook. A heavy object, hidden, silent, moving with purpose, wrapped in ice like camouflage. And we, Earth, humanity, are sitting in the dark, watching it approach, unable to stop it, unable to touch it, unable to even agree on what it is. I feel a throb in the back of my skull, like my brain is rejecting the data in self-defense. Holt ends the briefing abruptly, telling us to wait for classified follow-up files. The screen goes black. For a moment, no one stands. Then the questions erupt all at once. What if it's fragmentation misinterpreted? What if it's non-gravitational acceleration from outgassing? What if the density calculations are wrong? What if we're feeding our own paranoia? But everyone here knows the dirty secret of science. We ask those questions not because we believe the simpler explanation, but because we're terrified the more complex one might be true. I walk out of the room before the arguments turn into shouting. I need air. Outside, the Arizona sun is already high, already hot. The world feels painfully normal. Cars pass by. Birds chatter in a Palo Verde tree. Someone in a white truck honks at a cyclist. Nothing matches the magnitude of what we just saw. I stand there long enough for the heat to sting the back of my neck. Then my phone buzzes. Ethan. His voice is tight. You need to see this. I'm back inside in less than a minute. He pulls me into the data lab where 3 monitors glow with fresh frames from the very large telescope. He doesn't say anything at first, he just lets the images speak. And they do. God, they do. The shape inside Atlas is changing, only slightly, so slightly that if you blink, you'll miss it. But the curvature has shifted, as if the object inside the ice rotated. Do you see that edge? Ethan whispers. It's moving. He drags a cursor along the profile. The software plots a displacement vector. 3 pixels, then 4, then 5. 5 pixels, he says. That's, I murmur, rotation. But comets don't rotate like that. No, they don't. He switches to a thermal model. The coma should be scattering heat uniformly, but around the shadow there's a cold spot, a thermal void. Not because it's colder there, but because heat is being absorbed, or blocked, or redirected. My breath catches. It's shielding itself, I whisper, or it has its own temperature regulation. His face goes pale. Do you realize what that means? I nod slowly, each thought crawling like ice through my nerves. It means the object inside Atlas behaves like a vessel. It means the heat signature doesn't define it, it defines the ice around it. It means someone, something, wanted it to reach its destination intact. I step back from the monitor, unable to keep the tremor out of my hands. My mind keeps circling back to the same haunting, devastating truth. We cannot reach it. Not with current propulsion, not with current probes, not with anything humanity has built. And if something is piloting it, if the trajectory correction near Jupiter means what it looks like it means, then we are dealing with something overwhelmingly beyond our technological horizon, and overwhelmingly ahead of us. Ethan speaks again, voice thin. Do you think it's observing us? The question feels like a blade pressed lightly against my throat. I don't want to answer.
But I do. If it slowed down at Jupiter, I say, if it altered course, then yes, I think it sees us. Another alert pings on the main monitor. A fresh orbital update from NASA. Atlas has shifted again. Not much, just enough to be intentional. Just enough to point its path slightly closer to Earth. Not impact close, not collision close,
but close enough to watch us with terrifying precision. My pulse spikes. I feel heat flushing up my neck. "Why adjust the trajectory?" Ethan murmurs. "Why come closer if not to—" He cuts himself off. We both know the word he's avoiding. I whisper it anyway. Study. The room feels smaller, hotter. The walls seem to inch inward. A dread settles over me. Not the frantic Hollywood kind, but something colder, deeper, older. The dread of understanding that your species is not alone, not advanced, not in control, and never has been. Another alert flashes. Unexpected. Red. A message straight from NASA HQ. Prepare for classified briefing. Subject: Atlas internal mass function. That word again. Internal, mass, function. Like it's not just mass, not just an object, not just a structure. Like it's doing something, like it has purpose. Ethan inhales sharply. "We're not ready for this," he whispers. I shake my head. "No," I say, "we're not. And we can't win against something we don't understand." For a moment, neither of us speaks. The hum of the servers feels louder than before, as if the machines know something the humans don't. Then, out of nowhere, the lights flicker. Once. Twice. Ethan tenses. "Power grid spike?" "No," I murmur. "Interference." With what? I don't know, but I feel it, deep in my bones, like the pressure drop before a storm. And then, a horrifying thought surfaces, slow and heavy. What if Atlas's rotation wasn't random? What if it wasn't passive? What if it was scanning? The next NASA message appears on the screen. Short, urgent, terrifying. Atlas internal structure emitting low-frequency pulses, not natural, not random, possible signal. Every hair on my arms rises. My throat tightens. My vision blurs at the edges. If Atlas is signaling, then the ice is not a prison. It's insulation. And the thing inside is awake. I stare at the screen, heartbeat thundering in my ears, every neuron in my brain screaming the same truth I've tried not to face since 3:47 this morning. We cannot stop what's coming, and whatever is inside Atlas knows it. The first pulse hits at 2:19 a.m. A low-frequency tremor, so deep it feels like it comes from inside my ribcage rather than the instrument logs I'm staring at, and for a moment, I don't understand what I'm seeing, because the waveform on the screen isn't noise, it isn't cosmic background hiss, it isn't solar interference or magnetospheric turbulence. It's structured, layered, rhythmic in a way that makes my skin tighten at the base of my neck. Ethan whispers, "No, no, that can't be real." But the pulse comes again. Clearer this time, a slow oscillation embedded with what looks like harmonic overtones, the kind that imply intention, the kind that imply repetition, the kind that imply the worst possible thing, a signal that knows it's being watched. I zoom in to the spectrogram until the pixels distort and I feel my heartbeat sync with the frequency, like the object inside Atlas is reaching through the void and knocking against the walls of our understanding, one deliberate beat at a time. We shouldn't be the first to receive this, I think. It feels too large, too heavy for people like us, grad students, instrumentation specialists, exhausted astronomers who haven't slept in 2 days, to be the ones staring at a message from something that shouldn't exist inside a comet. The third pulse arrives with a new element, a phase shift, slight but precise, the temporal equivalent of someone turning their head to look directly at you. I hate how quickly my brain humanizes it. Ethan moves closer. If this is internal resonance from structural failure, it's not, I say, because even if fear is distorting my reason, the data is clean. Too clean. No mechanical oscillation remains perfectly stable through turbulent outgassing. No natural cavity maintains geometric coherence through rotational drift. But the shadow inside Atlas does. And now it's pulsing. I feel the room shrinking again, the air thick, stale, like the ventilation system suddenly isn't enough. I close my eyes for half a second and I'm back at the moment we first saw the internal void, that cold, sinking certainty that something inside the ice was not just mass, but mechanism. The fourth pulse interrupts my thoughts, sharper now, amplitude rising like it's calibrating, adjusting, refining its own output. Instruments across the lab register the same signature. Multiple telescopes confirm the signal is radiating outward, not omnidirectionally, but along a vector, one that slowly, horrifyingly aligns with Earth. It's sweeping, Ethan whispers. It's scanning the inner system. My mouth is dry. Why? He exhales shakily. To find something. Or someone, though neither of us says it. The lab lights flicker again, just enough to make everyone stop breathing for a second. The servers hum louder like they're under strain. Data streams multiply across the monitors, telemetry dumps, real-time orbital recalculations, thermal scans. Atlas has slowed again. Not by much, not enough for the public to notice, but enough that the software flags the anomaly in red. Deceleration inconsistent with non-gravitational acceleration, the notification reads. My heart hits my ribs. It's breaking. Objects do not break. Not ones made of ice and dust, not ones that should be disintegrating by now. Atlas is holding itself together with a purpose we cannot decipher. Ethan leans forward, voice cracking at the edges. We can't intercept it. We can't reach it. It knows that. Another wave of dread crashes through me, heavier this time, dragging my thoughts into the dark place none of us wants to articulate. If it wanted to hide, it would have remained a comet. If it wanted to avoid detection, it wouldn't be pulsing. If it wanted to destroy us, it wouldn't be slowing down, it would be speeding up. So what does it want? The fifth pulse answers nothing, but it changes everything. Because this one contains structure. Modulation, patterns, repeating frequencies mapped onto ratios that feel too clean for chaos, too mathematical for coincidence, too deliberate to ignore. Ethan's voice is barely audible. It's encoding something. My hands tremble as I run a Fourier decomposition. The wave separates into subharmonics, then into envelopes, then into momentary intervals of near silence where the noise floor dips just enough to reveal faint inflections buried beneath, like whispers under breath. It's a carrier signal, a scaffold. The real message is nested inside. My stomach flips, because if it's sending a message now, before it even reaches perihelion, then Atlas hasn't just been traveling, it's been waiting. The sixth pulse comes before we finish processing the fifth, stronger, louder, almost impatient. For the first time, I feel something impossible, pressure. Like the pulse isn't just sound, but intention pushing against the limits of what our instruments can measure. What if, Ethan whispers, this is the first thing it said in millions of years? My throat tightens. Then who was it meant for? We freeze when the NASA emergency channel opens without request. A voice I don't recognize says, "Prepare for live coordination. Do not disconnect. Do not distribute any data until instructed." Then silence. The kind that feels rehearsed. The kind that precedes something catastrophic. The room fills with the quiet panic of people pretending not to panic. I stare at the monitors, at the drifting comet with its impossible shadow, and I feel the shape inside it as if it's leaning towards us, listening, adjusting, deciding. The seventh pulse hits and every monitor in the lab snaps to black for a fraction of a second before rebooting. The waveform that returns is no longer smooth, it's angular, segmental, structured like geometry intruding into sound. I whisper, "It's changing its language." Ethan doesn't respond. He's staring at the new wave, sharp peaks arranged in ratios that mimic orbital periods. Mercury, Venus, Earth, 3 spikes, repeated again. It's indexing planets, he says hollowly. It's identifying bodies in the inner system. The eighth pulse arrives before we finish interpreting the seventh, and now there is no ambiguity, no plausible deniability, no scientific shield to hide behind, because the central spike, the one aligned with Earth, elongates, deepens, focuses. The signal is pointing at us. My body goes cold. "Why Earth?" Ethan asks, almost pleading. "Why now?" The answer surfaces in my mind like a nightmare surfacing through calm water. Because we noticed it. The ninth pulse is quieter, calmer, shorter, a smoothed version of the earlier waves, as if the signal is withdrawing, evaluating, waiting. The room is silent except for the mechanical whir of cooling fans and the faint electrical buzz in the walls, a buzz that suddenly feels alive. It hits me then, not as fear but as realization, sharp and blinding. Atlas isn't approaching Earth, it's observing our response. The 10th pulse is the confirmation, a soft harmonic that mirrors one of our own earlier scans back at us, repeating our signal with microscopic distortion, like bats echolocate caves or submarines probe seafloors. "It's measuring us," I whisper. The pulse we sent was weak, routine, harmless, a standard spectral analysis ping, and it mirrored it. Improved it, amplified it, returned it like a question or an invitation. Ethan staggers back from the monitors as if pushed. "We can't answer that. We can't respond. We're not ready." I shake my head slowly. It doesn't matter what we're ready for. The 11th pulse arrives, gentle, patient, focused. And inside the waveform, God help us, there's a gap in the signal. A break, a momentary absence that when analyzed forms a shape, a silhouette, a profile, the same geometry as the internal shadow we've been tracking. The object inside Atlas just sent us an image of itself. Ethan's knees nearly buckle. I feel my lungs forget how to expand. The silhouette is not round. It is not irregular. It is not comet-like in any way. It is symmetrical, bilateral, engineered, and worse, it is intact, protected across light years with a precision our best materials could never survive. The 12th pulse ends the charade. It contains coordinates, not to Earth, not to any planet, to a position just outside lunar orbit, a position that matches the post-Jupiter trajectory adjustment. I swallow hard, the sound loud in my own head. It's not just coming closer, it's choosing where to stop. And then the worst realization of all slides into my mind like a knife under the ribs. Whatever's inside Atlas isn't arriving, it's parking. The moment Washington steps in, everything fractures, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet precision of a scalpel. At 4:32 a.m., every civilian channel quietly drops off the data stream. Half the dashboards in our lab go dark. A command prompt overrides our instruments, forcing them into mirrored uplink mode. We're suddenly no longer observers, we're spectators inside our own project. Then the classified briefing initializes, and the faces that appear on screen aren't scientists, they're officials. The kind who speak in low tones and measured phrases because they already know the nightmare is bigger than anything they're allowed to admit. A man in a dark suit, no badge, no introduction, clears his throat. "We have confirmation that 3I-Atlas executed another trajectory correction at 0258 UTC. The air vanishes from my lungs. Another correction, another controlled maneuver, another piece of evidence that the object inside Atlas is not just aware, it's active." The man continues, "The burn, if you want to call it that, was subtle, but its vector aligns with a stable orbital insertion near the Earth-Moon L2 point. I feel my stomach drop through the floor. L2. A parking location, a vantage point, a position ideal for observation or staging. Not an attack trajectory, not a collision course, something worse. Patience. Ethan swears under his breath, the quiet kind you only make when your entire worldview is crumbling in your hands. The official's voice drones on. Our models indicate the object will decelerate further over the next 72 hours. We expect a final orbital capture if it continues behaving predictably. If. Predictably. Words chosen like glass on a wound. Then he says something that chills me deeper than the pulses ever did. We are not to respond to its signal. Not yet. Ethan's head snaps toward the screen. It's talking to us, he whispers, and we're just going to ignore it? The man's voice hardens. Until we understand intent, any response could be interpreted as acknowledgement, alignment, or hostility. We cannot risk escalation. Escalation. As if we are peers, as if we are equals. We are not equals. We are insects watching a boot drift closer. I want to scream, but the sound never reaches my throat. The briefing ends abruptly. The screen goes black, and we're left in the stale hum of dying fluorescent lights, with only our own terror filling the space between the machines. I step outside because the air inside the lab feels radioactive. Tucson's desert is still dark, still silent, but something feels wrong. The sky is too clear, the stars are too sharp, and all I can think is, this is the last night the universe will ever look the same to us. My phone vibrates violently, an emergency push alert, not public, internal. A message from the Deep Space Network. Atlas internal mass is moving. The words hit me like a physical blow. Inside the comet, inside the shell of ice and dust, the object is shifting, repositioning, preparing. My pulse spikes so hard it rattles my vision. I run back inside, the lab suddenly full of frantic noise and metallic panic. Technicians bark incomplete sentences. Someone drops a stack of printouts. Monitors refresh with new frames streaming from the infrared array in Chile. And there it is, frame after frame, a subtle but unmistakable change. The internal silhouette is rotating more rapidly, shedding microfractures through the surrounding ice, releasing faint plumes not of chaotic outgassing, but of directed material. Venting, clearing space, making room. My knees go weak. Ethan grips the edge of a workstation. It's preparing to emerge, he whispers. I swallow hard, but it feels like my throat is closing. No, not emerging. It's stabilizing itself before arrival. The 11th pulse comes through again, not from Atlas this time, but from our own archived logs, because someone in the room is running a cross-correlation, trying to match the internal movement with the timing of the signal, and the match is nearly perfect. It's signaled right before every structural shift, every single time, a quiet voice says behind me. Every single time. The implication stabs through the room. It's not just communicating, it's coordinating with something, or someone. A command sequence, a countdown. The lights flicker again, this time longer. When they return, one of the giant displays is filled with something new. A simulated time-lapse of the internal object, reconstructed from scattered tomography data. As the model sharpens, the shape emerges. Not a sphere, not a jagged lump of cosmic debris. A hull, smooth, aerodynamic in a way that defies natural formation. Almost like a seed, or a craft, or both. My breath falters, my chest tightening. There's no propulsion signature, someone says. Nothing chemical, nothing ion, nothing nuclear. And then Ethan, voice trembling.
What if propulsion isn't the right framework? We all stare at him. What if Atlas is not a vehicle traveling to us, but something being delivered by something else? The room goes dead silent. Delivered. The comet as a capsule, a shell, a courier, a biological envelope. My hands go numb. No, I say, but the words sound small and weak, like a child refusing to believe in a shadow. We have no evidence of a sender, no directional origin, no... I freeze, because I remember the trajectory reconstruction, traced backward far, far beyond the solar system. Atlas didn't come from a random interstellar drift. It came along a line, a narrow corridor of space, so straight it felt intentional, guided. The DSN console pings again, new alert, internal structure changing vibrational modes. The waveform is displayed on screen, sharp, rising, rhythmic. Not pulses now, breaths. Like something awakening, something stretching in its cocoon. My mind spirals through possibilities, each worse than the last. Probe, beacon, biological payload, machine intelligence, cryptic communication device, or something that doesn't fit any of our categories because our categories are built for primates on a small blue rock. What if Atlas isn't here to observe? What if it's here to deploy? Panic ripples across the lab in small, controlled fractures. People whisper, but the whispers sound like the prelude to a scream. Then, a sudden sharp sound breaks through everything, an alarm from the spectrograph terminal, a spike in high-frequency emissions, narrowband, pointed directly at Earth. It's locked onto us, someone says. It's targeting something specific. Another pattern emerges on the screen, 3 clusters of repeating frequencies. They match the earlier planetary index pulses, Mercury, Venus, Earth. But the Earth cluster expands, multiplying subbands, filtering, searching, selecting. It's looking for a resonance, Ethan says. I shake my head. A resonance with what? The answer arrives 1 second later in the form of a new alert from the planetary magnetic field monitors. Geomagnetic coupling detected. The words feel unreal, impossible, terrifying. It's not scanning our planet, it's scanning our magnetosphere, the way you might run your fingers along the surface of a locked door before choosing which part to pry open. Another simulation appears on the screen without anyone triggering it, Washington pushing data into our lab. A projection of the object inside Atlas with its current energy output overlaid against Earth's magnetic structure. And the alignment is unmistakable. It's mapping our defenses, Ethan whispers. It's choosing where to anchor, I say, the words tasting like metal. The room explodes into frantic arguments, containment protocols, planetary defense initiatives, international treaties, but all of them are noise, fear disguised as strategy, futility dressed as procedure, because every person in this room knows the same crushing truth. We are spectators, not participants. Atlas is moving at a level of control we cannot comprehend, let alone counter. It has already chosen.
My vision blurs for a moment, not from tears, but from a sudden rush of adrenaline. I grip the desk to stay upright. All the fear I've been repressing condenses into one clarity that cuts through everything like a blade through fog. We cannot stop what's coming, because it does not see us as a threat. It sees us as a variable, a factor, a condition of arrival. The DSN terminal chimes again. A final update. ATLS has initiated long-form signal sequence. The waveform explodes across the screen, layered, vast, mathematical, almost orchestral, and embedded inside, unmistakable and unforgiving, is the same geometric silhouette, only now it's no longer a shadow, it's a diagram, a schematic, a form that looks less like a vessel and more like a being. Ethan exhales a single word, barely more than a whimper. "It's not arriving," he says. "It's awakening." And the worst part isn't that he's right. The worst part is that every instrument, every pulse, every shift inside the comet confirms the truth I've been running from since the moment we found that shadow in the coma. We are not witnessing visitation. We are witnessing emergence. And for the first time since this began, I feel something beyond fear, something colder, something ancient, something humans are not built to endure. Insignificance. The final 72 hours unfold like a collapsing star, time bending inward, events accelerating until every second feels weaponized. And yet all of us trapped inside the observation bunker at Goddard understand one thing with a clarity that tastes like electricity. Whatever is inside Atlas is no longer merely approaching its destination. It is transitioning into whatever stage comes next, and humanity is standing beneath it like a child beneath an avalanche. The first sign arrives at 03:11 UTC, when the pulses stop, completely, abruptly, unnervingly, and the silence that replaces them feels alive, like the held breath before a declaration. Screens show nothing but baseline cosmic noise, and for a moment the entire room freezes, because the cessation of a signal is not relief, it is intention. Ethan leans toward me, his voice barely audible. It's shifting modes. He's right. 40 seconds pass, then 45, then 50, and then the comet brightens, 9%, then 17, then a full 32, as if something inside the ice is heating, radiating, preparing to shed the last fragments of its disguise. Spectrometers bloom with data, frantic and contradictory, heat spikes with no combustion, luminosity curves with no chemical precedent, ionization patterns more reminiscent of controlled plasma than natural sublimation. It's initiating exterior breach, someone says. My throat constricts. The ice shell around Atlas begins to split, not chaotically, not randomly, in lines, symmetrical fissures traveling along geometric arcs, like the petals of a colossal frozen flower beginning to open around a seed that has slept too long. And in that moment, something inside me fractures, because I realize this was never a comet. It was a chrysalis, a delivery system, a coffin, a cradle. The shell continues to split, jets of dust spraying into space like sparks from a forge, and at the center of the storm the object reveals itself, not fully, not yet, but enough that the instruments begin failing in sequence, overloaded by the structure's reflectivity, by its density, by its deliberate refusal to behave like matter should. One of the NOAA engineers mutters, "We're out of our depth," but the words sound too small for the moment, like describing a supernova as bright. The telemetry collapses in waves as Atlas jitters between frames, each image less comet and more architecture, crystalline plates sliding past one another like tectonics engineered with precision no natural process could imitate. We're all staring at the screens when the orbit update drops into the feed, a single line of text that detonates the illusion of hope. Atlas has entered controlled deceleration for L2 capture. Controlled, not predicted, not modeled, controlled. We watch the numbers shift, and with each decimal stabilizing, I feel the illusion of human significance peel away like burning paper.
We are not participants in this moment. We are witnesses to something performing a maneuver we cannot replicate even with our best propulsion systems. Ethan grips the table, knuckles white. "If it parks at L2, we've lost," he whispers. I shake my head slowly. We never had a chance to win. The realization spreads through the room like contagion. If Atlas chooses to anchor itself, there is nothing we can do to stop it, nothing we can send, nothing we can threaten, nothing we can bargain with. Every mission we've ever built, Voyager, New Horizons, OSIRIS-REx, looks suddenly like toys. The pulses resume. But they're no longer pulses. They're sequences, cascades of sound modulated into complex strings that rise and fall with a cadence almost biological, like breath accelerating toward consciousness. The ice shell around Atlas ruptures a final time, a ring of ejecta expanding outward in slow, beautiful symmetry. And then we see it. The object is no longer a shadow, no longer a silhouette, no longer a hidden mass nestled inside frozen camouflage. It is exposed, massive, smooth, metallic yet organic in curvature. A vessel, yes, but not shaped for travel, shaped for endurance, shaped for arrival. It rotates once, slowly, deliberately, aligning a structure on its surface with the Earth-Moon line. The rotation is not incidental. It is focus. I feel it like a hand closing around the base of my spine. The world governments erupt in chaos, secure channels exploding with contradictory orders. Do nothing, prepare defenses, do not engage, engage if necessary, attempt communication, shut down all broadcasts. The contradictions reveal the truth. No one knows what any of this means. The vessel, or whatever word should replace vessel, sheds the last fragments of dust and reveals something etched along its surface. Lines, grooves, patterns that resemble circuitry but scale across hundreds of meters. Someone behind me whispers, "It's a map." Someone else whispers, "It's a warning." Someone else whispers, "The truth. It's alive." The sequences coming from Atlas intensify, layering over themselves until the waveforms resemble neural firing patterns. I feel my fingertips tingling, my pulse sinking to the cadence the way it did during the first pulses. But now it's stronger, unmistakable. The object isn't just signaling, it's synchronizing. Ethan's voice slices through the rising noise. It's linking with our magnetosphere. It's testing coherence thresholds. My breath stutters. For what? He says, "For compatibility." The cameras tracking Atlas flicker, then stabilize as the object emits a new burst of radiation, not harmful, not destructive, but probing, measuring the boundary between what Earth is and what Earth could be under the right influence. My heart pounds, my vision blurring at the edges. It's choosing anchor points for deployment. The room erupts, but I barely hear any of it, because suddenly a new alert flashes across every screen, overriding all others. A new message from the Deep Space Network. Signal lock achieved. Target human EEG frequency range. My blood runs cold. I whisper, "It's not communicating with instruments, it's communicating with minds." Ethan stares at me horrified. Why would it do that? The answer arrives before I speak it, sliding into my mind with the inevitability of gravity, because we are the material of interest. The vessel brightens again, an internal glow radiating outward like pressure from a rising tide. The signal intensifies, rising into harmonics that overlap with human neural rhythms, penetrating through shielding, through distance, through every defense we didn't have the imagination to build. People clutch their heads, someone collapses to their knees, another screams that they heard a voice, not in words, but in structure, like meaning wrapped inside sensation. And then, silence. Terrifying, absolute silence. The vessel stops glowing, the signal cuts, the brightness fades. For a moment, no one breathes. It feels like the aftermath of a lightning strike. Hot air, hollow stillness, the sense that something irreversible has just occurred. The monitors refresh. Atlas is no longer decelerating. It is stationary, suspended in a perfect gravitational pocket. The parking maneuver has been complete. The vessel has arrived. Not crashing, not invading, not announcing conquest. Simply present, watching, waiting, evaluating. My pulse thunders in my ears. Ethan whispers, barely audible, "Did something begin?" No. Something ended. I don't speak it out loud, but the truth is immediate and brutal. Humanity has just become observable, categorized, indexed, a data point in someone else's encyclopedia. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel the crushing weight of insignificance fully settle into my chest. We are not the protagonists of our cosmos. We are the subject of a scan, a curiosity, a specimen examined by something that traveled farther, endured longer, and awakened with purpose, more ancient than any concept we possess. Yet beneath the terror, a darker realization blooms. Whatever Atlas is doing, it isn't finished. The vessel's surface shifts, faint but undeniable, and the shape we once thought was a shadow unfolds slightly, just enough to reveal depth, movement, intention. Something inside it is preparing to open.